Okay, hello. Yeah, my name is Daniel Muia. With me are my co-presenters, Stellah Masese and Boniface Munene. Our presentation is entitled Inclusive and Participatory Community Development, Building on Ubuntu to Leave No One Behind. I will start the presentation, then my colleagues will come to share, and then later I will come back to make some concluding remarks. So by way of introduction, inclusiveness and participatory community development is a process whose salience cannot be gainsaid. It's a fact that inclusion is a value, it is a right, and it's also a principle of holistic community development, as already cited in literature. And the spirit of inclusion is at the core of rallying for the sustainable development goals to leave no one behind. And this is quite important because inclusiveness is become the norm, and there is no justice for community development to take place when some of the segments of society are excluded. Over time, inclusive community development has tended to majorly focus on persons with the disabilities, and rightly so when you take into account the challenges they face on a day-to-day basis. However, there are also other groups that are equally facing barriers to their participation in social life. Here we have the youth, the older persons, children, indigenous peoples, the poor. And when we look at these categories of, they're also facing challenges which also make it difficult for them to participate in society. When you focus on social inclusion, then we are getting into a process where we are enabling asserting of voice and agency by individuals and communities through social and political participation. We're also ensuring that there is focus on the unique as well as the diverse needs of individuals and groups in communities. On the converse, interventions that are not inclusive, participatory, and holistic create social inequalities which is not justified. Also, interventions that are not inclusive adversely affects all of us and community practice, and unfortunately dehumanizes us. The lessons from COVID-19 indicate that we are better off with inclusiveness as community members are first responders and guardians of humanity, even in those situations where we have the best of government systems. And so inclusiveness cannot be really gainsaid. Incidentally, new categories of excluded populations are emerging and are going to emerge as new disruptors come on board and affect communities. Here we have in mind climate change, we have politics, which is dynamic and at times conflicting. And so inclusion should be a norm to safeguard common interests and humanity. Next slide. Allow me to invite Boniface to take you to the component about inclusiveness and Ubuntu. And then I'll come back later to conclude. Boniface, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Muia, and welcome other participants who are present. My name is Boniface Munene Rufo, based in Kenya, in Nairobi specifically. I will be presenting on Ubuntu, and this is a concept or an ideology that we are proposing for an inclusive participatory community development. Ubuntu is an African human ideology and indigenous approach with roots from a community called Nguni in South Africa. And Ubuntu means humanity. It means having a human face. Therefore, the core of Ubuntu is that I am because you are. And whatever happens to the individual happens to the whole group, and whatever happens to the whole group happens to the individual. So therefore, this is an indication of brotherhood and sisterhood that we need to embrace in our society, in our communities. Ubuntu reflects social self other than the true self. It reflects the idea that I need you and you need me for us to progress. Therefore, it is a panacea for social exclusion. This highlights the interdependent relationship with each other, how we care for each other within our day-to-day activities. Therefore, Ubuntu ensures an inclusive yet participatory community development practice within our setups. Why Ubuntu? Ubuntu is very important because it reflects our society, social fabric, and the cultural affinity. Therefore, as Dr. Muia is starting to say, there's a lot of skewness towards looking at the disabled as only the group that need to be included in different frameworks. So when we use the social fabric and the cultural affinity, we are able to bring everyone on board based on the need. And by doing this, we reduce prejudices and discrimination, bearing in mind that today, discriminative practices are evident within our society. We need also to create freedom and justice through Ubuntu. And this can come through community friendliness, harmonious relationships, and reconciliation. Through Ubuntu, therefore, people are able also to open their minds and see more opportunities. However, if we have a fragmented system within our society, then things fall apart. People become enemy of each other. But through Ubuntu, there is a spirit of togetherness. And therefore, we can reduce acute social exclusion. In addition, Ubuntu acts as an antithesis to neoliberalism. Neoliberalism is also evident among several societies in the world. There is domination in the marketplace based on capitalism, where individualism now has taken place. Through this, it has created a space for social exclusion to prevail. Despite Ubuntu having roots in South Africa, we are suggesting that it can be used in other contexts, in other societies, to solve issues like racial politics, which are evident. And therefore, encouraging communism is very, very important as community development practitioners by bringing all people together through active participation. And therefore, it is our role to bring people together, to mobilize forces, encourage willing participation, and open their mind. And by using Ubuntu, trust me, we will find ourselves having a very conducive environment for all of us. And I'll give an example. A child with a mental illness who is abandoned to a family. If the society, the community take that one as a collective responsibility, it no longer becomes a burden to that family, but a collective responsibility to all of us. And this is the way that we are proposing as far as inclusion and the participatory community is concerned. Thank you. Over to Dr. Stellah.
Okay, I'm Stellah Masese, going to take you through the aspect of Ubuntu with social capital and how it can lead to inclusive participatory community development within our societies. So as my colleagues have said, the whole aspect of Ubuntu is all about taking care of the different individuals within our societies. So as we talk about this Ubuntu, basically it's going to thrive within societies that have rich social capital in place, which social capital is all about the different rings, the different bonds that these individuals are going to create within their different social networks, whereby these rings that they create and the bonds, they basically give them different avenues to be able to exercise the power from those social groups and social networks to be able to continue doing the different community processes. However, even as we talk about these different social networks that are coming in, you find that social capital is not homogeneous, or it's not basically available for all the members of the community because of the different social structural barriers in different communities. We are talking about the prejudices within our different communities. We are talking about the aspect of poverty. We are talking about the unresponsive policy framework, which now brings in some bit of exclusion where all members of the society, of the community are not included in all these activities that are happening at that particular point in time within the society. So as we talk about this social capital, basically social capital is coming in and is leading us as the community members to be able to reach out to each and everyone within the community. And as we try to reach out to each and everyone, then we are trying to bring everybody together, to be able to work together, to be able to participate, to be able to be included in all these different activities. So that as we include all these members within the different community processes, then these members are going to benefit from the different activities within this community. Some of them are going to benefit socially from these social networks. You are going to see some different economic benefits that are going to come in, and also even the transformation of the cultural structures, which now are going to lead to different levels of inclusion of the different members within these communities. But even as we talk about the whole concept of bringing the people together and trying to work with them and trying now to gain the different benefits, each and every individual is going to gain the different benefits depending on the potential social position that they have, regardless of how big or how small that social network is. Which position do you have in that social network? It's going to give you more gains, regardless of how many people you are within that particular social network. So as we talk about this social capital, it's also important to note that individuals in society always act on self-interest, whereby each and every individual, they want to fulfill their own needs and wants. So even as now we try now to expand it and try to see how to make these individuals to include everybody and to be able to make sure that everybody is able to participate, to be able to get the different social capital benefits. Then we need to include the whole aspect of Ubuntu, whereby Ubuntu is all about I am because you are. Whatever happens to an individual is going to affect the whole group. Whatever affects the group is going to affect the different individuals. So we need to put this concept into the whole concept of social capital to make sure that each and everybody within the community is basically brought in and they're given equal chances to be able to participate in the different activities that happen within their different social networks. So as we talk about this social capital, then the aspect of Ubuntu coming in, this Ubuntu and social capital, it's going to help us to have a community that is connected by mutual interest, whereby now members are not working on their different individual self-interest, but they are working on the benefit of the whole group, of the whole society, which now as they work with a common mutual interest, then you find that they are going to be able to include each and every member within this particular social network or a community or a society. Number two, social capital and Ubuntu, it's going to help us to have communities that are able to enhance the aspect of social participation, which basically is going to lead to the social inclusion of the members that are otherwise excluded, or the groups that have been excluded in society. As my colleagues have said, there are different groups that are emerging in our societies that have been excluded in the different activities. So as we try to use the social capital and we borrow the aspects of Ubuntu, then we are able now to enhance the aspect of social participation within our societies, which now leads to including all these members who have been left out in one of the community processes. Aspect number 3, using social capital and Ubuntu, then we are able to advance the communities-based assets, whereby social capital is one of the community-based assets. So as we try to develop these two concepts, then you find that you are going to use this asset of social capital to be able to see how do we make sure that all the individuals within the community are able to be included and are given equal chances to be able to participate on what's happening within the community. But for Ubuntu to now work within our communities, then we need to develop a continuous and stronger social capital. The aspect of trust, the aspect of mutual interest, we need to develop it each and every day, and we need to make it much stronger so that when Ubuntu now comes in, it can be able to work and facilitate the whole aspect of social inclusion and participation in the different development activities within the community. So now I invite Dr. Muia to be able to conclude.
Thank you, Stellah. Thank you, Boniface. And colleagues, our conclusion based on our presentation, we want just to make 3 concluding statements. 1, Ubuntu, when it is anchored on social capital, it underpins actions that ensure no one is left behind. And that is the rallying call of the moment. Secondly, Ubuntu is a counterweight to exclusion and neoliberalism. Increasingly, the market forces are becoming the dictators of what happens in society, and in the process, dehumanizing us. Yet we are saying we need to remain connected and to be guardians of each other. And then lastly, we want to make a call for a community development practice that is not only just inclusive and participatory, but also as transformative as it is humane. Thank you very much.